of the 48 Laws of Power and how he uses an ancient war story that happened so long ago that still can apply to this day. I really do feel that when reading that, this is what Kendrick probably used, or I don't even really want to say probably. I will say that I'm pretty sure that he did use this when he just made sure to crush Drake completely and annihilate him at the Super Bowl. And that's what he did. He annihilated him, not just with the Super Bowl, but also with the Grammys. He came in and he just annihilated his opponent, as he should. Now, it was a little too much with like the whole Canadian suit and all that. Possibly. But I get it, man. I get it. I'm telling you, everything that Kendrick is doing subliminally, you have to go back and you have to say that he's obviously reading this book, The 48 Laws of Power. There's no doubt in my mind. I think I even heard Joe Budden bring this up on his pod where he was saying like, oh, 48 Laws of Power. So those of us that have read this book, that are reading this book, we're kind of aware of these things. And like I said, man, if you haven't read this book yet, I highly suggest that you go pick it up. Today, I want to discuss this book that's called The 48 Laws of Power. It's a very inspirational, very thought-provoking, and business-minded book. What first turned me on to this book was when I heard that inmates in the prison system were not allowed to read this book. And when I said, oh, this book has been banned from jails, it's what really made me feel like, all right, well, anytime a book gets banned from government facilities, such as school, the education system, or even jail facilities, that's going to pique my interest and make me say, okay, I think that I should read this book. I should check this book out. I should see what this person is saying. Written by author Robert Greene. The book, The 48 Laws of Power, demonstrates different laws that a man, I think this book is actually predominantly, the audience is for men, but women can also apply these laws as well. But yes, it's basically how to understand certain things, how to overcome your enemy, how to be powerful. And I think that you can use these old parables and fables that he uses in business. But he brings up a lot of things that happen in ancient history that could still be applied today. And when I was watching Kendrick Lamar's battle, especially the part where he did the Say Drake, we all know the part where he's rapping and he's doing his whole thing, and then he looks at the camera and he smiles and he does the Say Drake. I said to myself when I first saw that, I said, you know what? I wonder if Kendrick read the book 48 Laws of Power. And I said he had to have. He had to have. Because everything he did in this battle was pretty much in this book. Everything, man. I mean, we could even run through the chapters. Like law number 1, never outshine the master, which is very important, and which you could see is actually what he put as the first law. Law number 2, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. Law number 3, conceal your intentions. I mean, you guys kind of, get the perspective of this. It's definitely a whole thing about psychology and understanding your opponent's psychology. He even talks about mind control in this book as well. But the law for this episode that I want to focus on is right here. Law number 15. Crush your enemy totally. And when I saw what Kendrick did at that halftime show, this was the law that came to mind. That's the part when I said, oh, he just wanted to destroy him completely. And I remember hearing other people say, other podcasters say like, maybe that's just a little too much, or maybe he went a little too far, or he made the Super Bowl too much about Drake and he should have just, did his hits and all this and that. But the reason why a lot of y'all probably don't understand this is because Kendrick clearly read the book 48 Laws of Power. like I said, man, if you go through the titles, I really feel that Kendrick applied all of these laws and principles into his beef with Drake. This beef had reminded me about this book, and I was like, you know what? I got to go back and reread this book, and I'm glad that I'm doing so now because I feel like it's teaching me so many things. You know, let's just run through it real quick. So the chapter, or shall I say Law 15, crush your enemy totally. Judgment. All great leaders since Moses have known that a feared enemy must be crushed completely. Sometimes they learn this the hard way. If one ember is left alight, no matter how dimly it smolders, a fire will eventually break out. More is lost through stopping halfway than through total annihilation. The enemy will recover and seek revenge. Crush him, not only in body, but in spirit. So I think you guys are kind of getting the reason why this book has been banned from jails, because they don't want you to have the knowledge. They don't want you to be doing this type of knowledge. They'll let you read up on, you know, sports and all kinds of stuff and the drama with Diddy and everything that's going on. And I mean, that's a whole nother episode in itself, but they won't want you to read stuff like this. They don't want you to get knowledge like this. I find that very interesting, man. Transgression of the law. No rivalry between leaders is more celebrated in Chinese history than the struggle between Hsiang and Liu Pang. Excuse me if I'm not pronouncing these names right. I'm going to be right here. These two generals began their careers as friends, fighting on the same side. Hsiang came from the nobility, large and powerful, given to bouts of violence and temper, a bit dual-witted. He was yet a mighty warrior who always fought at the head of his troops. Liu Pang came from peasant stock. He had never been much of a soldier and preferred women and wine to fighting. In fact, he was something of a scoundrel. But he was wily, and he had the ability to recognize the best strategists, keep them as his advisors, and listen to their advice. He had risen in the army through these strengths. The remnants of the enemy can become active like those of disease or fire. Hence, these should be exterminated completely. One should never ignore an enemy, knowing him to be weak. He becomes dangerous in due course, like the spark of a fire in a haystack. Kautilya, Indian philosopher, 3rd century BC. So you see, a lot of these writings are coming before Christ. These are things that have been embedded throughout civilization of humanity. These are things that we need to pay attention to. And I know some of y'all might say, oh, well, that was written in Mandarin, or it was written in Arabic, or, you know, how can you really make sure that we can translate that correct language over? Yeah, we know that some things might not have been translated correctly between their language and our language to English, but we know that a lot of these stories are true, and a lot of these stories have happened because they're written in ancient scrolls, which we can look up. In 2008 BC, the king of Chu sent 2 massive armies to conquer the powerful kingdom of Qin. Okay, again, not sure if I'm pronouncing this right, but just let's go with the story, right? One army went north under the generalship of Sung Yi, with Hsiang second in command. The other, led by Liu Pang, headed straight to Qin. The target was the kingdom's splendid capital, Hsiang. And Hsiang, ever violent and impatient, could not stand the idea that Liu Pang would get to Hsiang first and perhaps would assume command of the entire army. At one point on the northern front, Hsiang's commander, Sung Yi, hesitated in sending his troops into battle. Furious, Hsiang entered Sung Yi's tent, proclaimed him a traitor, cut off his head, and assumed sole command of the army. Without waiting for orders, he left the northern front and marched directly on Hsiang. He felt certain he was the better soldier and general than Liu, but to his utter astonishment, his rival, leading a smaller, swifter army, managed to reach Hsiang first. Hsiang had an advisor, Fan Sang, who warned him, the village headman, Lu Pang. The village headman, Lu Pang, used to be greedy only for riches and women, but since entering the capital, he has not been led astray by wealth, wine, or sex. That shows that he is aiming high. You see, that's my point, man. This goes on before Christ, where we had money, women, and power, you know what I'm saying, that made us get sidetracked and distracted. This kind of goes to show with Drake. Drake seems that he let the money, the women, the power, all that stuff, you know, the drugs and alcohol get to him, while Kendrick, also a general, also a master warrior, was sitting back and he was studying. He didn't let the wealth or the wine or the sex get to his head. Do you guys see what I'm saying, man? This is the part right here. Let me see if I can highlight it right here. This is the part right here. That's an important part right there that's highlighted, man. That sounds like most rappers. Most rappers who let the fame, the women, and the power get to their head, and they lose sight and they get distracted. And Kendrick seems like a rapper who did not let those distractions get to him. Hence the reason why we had the Super Bowl of what it is. Fan Sang urged Hsiang to kill his rival before it was too late. He told the general to invite the wily peasant to a banquet at their camp outside Hsiang, and in the midst of the celebratory sword dance, to have his head cut off. The invitation was sent. Lu fell for the trap and came to the banquet. Okay, so this is really interesting. Invited him to a party to kill him at the party. Doesn't this sound kind of similar to what happened to Notorious Big? I mean, he went to a party in Los Angeles, and then that's where it all happened. That's where it all went down. And it made me think, even back then, but still to this day, where it's like, not only what was Biggie doing in Los Angeles, but why did he go to that party? And isn't this some of what Diddy is being prosecuted for, or why he's being charged? It makes you wonder this, man. Were there other people at that party that knew what was going to happen? You see, things that happened centuries ago are still happening in the current space. And that is because no matter how much we improve, no matter how much better we get with technology, no matter how much things change, there's one thing that seems to always remain the same, and that is human philosophy and human culture and human emotion. We're all humans, man, and it seems like those feelings that we get have been around since the beginning of time and aren't going to go anywhere, and they're not going to change. And the things that we've done back then are still being done today. They might just sugarcoat it a little bit, or they might just switch it up a little bit, or they may just camouflage it with technology a little bit. But at the end of the day, all the things that were happening thousands upon thousands and thousands of years ago, before Christ, before the Bible was written, are still happening. Lu fell for the trap and came to the banquet. But Hsiang hesitated in ordering the sword dance, and by the time he gave the signal, Lu had sensed the trap and managed to escape. Bah! Cried Fan Sang in disgust, seeing that Hsiang had botched the plot. One could not plan with a simpleton. Lu Pang will steal your empire yet and make us all his prisoners. Realizing his mistake, Hsiang hurriedly marched on Hsiang, this time determined to hack off his rival's head. Lu was never one to fight when odds were against him, and he abandoned the city. Hsiang captured Hsiang, murdered the young prince of Qing, and burned the city to the ground. Lu was now Hsiang's bitter enemy, and he pursued him for many months, finally cornering him in a walled city. Lacking food, his army in disarray, Lu sued for peace, meaning he surrendered, meaning he was like, all right, man, that's it. You caught us. We give up. Fan Sang, I guess this is like some mentor to a lot of these people, saying, hey, he warned Hsiang, crush him now. If you let him go again, you will be sorry later. But Hsiang decided to be merciful. He wanted to bring Lu back to Shu alive and to force his former friend to acknowledge him as a master. But Fan proved right. Lu managed to use the negotiations for his surrender as a distraction, and he escaped with a small army. Hsiang, amazed that he had yet again let his rivals slip away, once more set out for Lu. This time with such ferocity that he seemed to have lost his mind. At one point, having captured Lu's father in battle, Hsiang stood the old man up during the fighting and yelled to Lu across the line of troops, "Surrender now, or I shall boil your father alive." Damn, it's crazy, man. I told you, man, this book is crazy. This book is deep. Lu calmly answered, "But we are sworn brothers, so my father is your father also. If you insist on boiling your own father, send me a bowl of the soup." Damn. Hsiang backed down and the struggle continued. A few weeks later, in the thick of the hunt, Hsiang scattered forces unwisely, and in a surprise attack, Lu was able to surround his main garrison. For the first time, the tables were turned. Now it was Hsiang who was asking for peace. Lu's top advisor urged him to destroy Hsiang and crush his army and show no mercy. To let him go will be like rearing a tiger. It will devour you later, the advisor said. And Lu agreed. Making a false treaty, he lured Hsiang into relaxing his defense, then slaughtered almost all of his army. You see what I'm saying, man? This guy had the opportunity to destroy and crush him twice, and he let him go. And now when this one that listened to his advisors, see, that's the difference, is that Lu was listening to the advisors. When he listened to them, he decided to crush him and show him no mercy. Making a false treaty, he lured Hsiang into relaxing his defense, then slaughtered almost all of his army. Hsiang managed to escape, alone and on foot, knowing that Lu had put a bounty on his head. He came upon a small group of his own retreating soldiers and cried out, "I hear Lu Peng has offered 1,000 pieces of gold and a fief of 10,000 families for his head. Let me do you a favor." And then he killed himself, man. The author, Robert Greene, comes to the interpretation. Like, all right, I know that I brought up a story that was from like centuries ago, but I'm going to show you how it applies today. And this is what I'm going to try to tell you, man. This is what Kendrick did with the Super Bowl. He wasn't like, oh, okay, you know, maybe you done too much. Maybe you made the Super Bowl too much like Drake. No, what Kendrick did was he went in and he crushed his enemy totally. He crushed the enemy completely. That's what he did. And isn't it ironic that Drake and J. Cole had a song where they talked about how they were as big as the Super Bowl? Big as the what? Big as the Super Bowl. And then Kendrick comes in and says, "No, you ain't. I'm the only king here. And you know what? I'm going to crush you. And not only am I going to crush you, but I'm also going to crush you at the Super Bowl." Hsiang proved his ruthlessness on many occasions. He rarely hesitated in doing away with the rival if it served his purposes. But with Lu Peng, he acted differently. He respected his rival and did not want to defeat him through deception. He wanted to prove his superiority on the battlefield, even to force the clever Lu to surrender and serve him. Every time he had his rival in his hands, something made him hesitate. A fatal sympathy with a respect for the man who, after all, once been a friend and a comrade in arms. But the moment Hsiang made it clear that he intended to do away with Lu, yet failed to accomplish it, he sealed his own doom. Lu would not suffer the same hesitation once the tables were turned. This is good information, y'all. I hope we're paying attention, man. I mean, I'm dropping some jewels right here that I don't hear too many YouTubers out there drop. So like I said, man, if you guys can like, subscribe, if you're still with us right now, that's great, man, because that's what we're going to be doing on this channel, man, is we're going to start preaching some knowledge. You know, it's also going to be around hip hop culture, but also show like where the knowledge is in that as well. This is the fate that faces all of us when we sympathize with our enemies, when pity or the hope of reconciliation makes us pull back from doing away with them. We only strengthen their fear and their hatred of us. We have beaten them and they are humiliated. Yet we nurture these resentful vipers who will one day try to kill us. Power cannot be dealt with this way. It must be exterminated, crushed, and denied the chance to return to haunt us. This is all the truer with a former friend who has become an enemy. And like I asked before, I want to know, have some of y'all had friends, maybe even best friends, that turned into enemies? I know I sure have. The law governing fatal antagonisms reads, reconciliation is out of the question. Only one side can win, and it must win totally. Liu Peng learned this lesson well. After defeating Hsiang, this son of a farmer went on to become supreme commander of the armies of Chu, crushing his next rival, the king of Chu, his own former leader. He crowned himself emperor, defeated everyone in his path, and went down in history as one of the greatest rulers of China, an immortal Han Kao Su, founder of the Han Dynasty. To have ultimate victory, you must be ruthless. Napoleon Bonaparte. Okay? How many schools out there are teaching y'all about Napoleon? They're probably teaching you about Napoleon Dynamite, but are they teaching you about the great leader and conqueror Napoleon Bonaparte? Probably not. Probably not, man. I didn't really learn that much about Napoleon when I was in school. I think we might have read like one chapter on him, but I mean, that was then. Like, what's going on now? Like, now school is on TikTok, right? Here's the another quote from that Indian philosopher. I believe the name is Kautilya. Those who seek to achieve things should show no mercy. So yeah, that part right there was a great story that's in this book of the 48 Laws of Power, and how he uses an ancient war story that happened so long ago that still can apply to this day. I really do feel that when reading that, this is what Kendrick probably used, or I don't even really want to say probably. I will say that I'm pretty sure that he did use this when he just made sure to crush Drake completely and annihilate him at the Super Bowl. And that's what he did. He annihilated him, not just with the Super Bowl, but also with the Grammys. He came in and he just annihilated his opponent, as he should. Now, it was a little too much with like the whole Canadian suit and all that. Possibly. But I get it, man. I get it. I'm telling you, everything that Kendrick is doing subliminally, you have to go back and you have to say that he's obviously reading this book, The 48 Laws of Power. There's no doubt in my mind. I think I even heard Joe Budden bring this up on his pod, where he was saying like, oh, you know, 48 Laws of Power. So those of us that have read this book, that are reading this book, we're kind of aware of these things. And like I said, man, if you haven't read this book yet, I highly suggest that you go pick it up. Let me tell you something, man. There's a lot of knowledge on the internet, but there's still way more knowledge in books, I feel, because I still read and I still prefer to read. And when I go to get my information and get my knowledge, I don't go online to get it. I might go online and just like learn a few things if I want to learn like quickly. You know, if you want that quick dose and you're just like, okay, I just need the information like right now, let me just get it right now, fine. But if you really want to go thorough and go deep and really like understand certain things, especially when it comes to like human psychology, yo, man, you're going to have to read books. You're going to have to read books. And I will say that I definitely believe that Kendrick read that book, 48 Laws of Power. And when he did that little look into the camera, as we see right here, and smiled and did the say Drake, I was like, oh yeah, man, he had to have read that book. Fully crushed his enemy. And let's go back. What's the title of that chapter or law? Law 15. Crush your enemy totally. And maybe I'll do some other videos. I mean, if you guys like this series, please feel free to comment below. I feel that a lot of these laws apply to a lot of things that are going on in hip hop. Not just in hip hop, but also in business culture as well. But definitely we can apply them to hip hop and rap music and what's going on. And we can tell who's studying and who's not studying. You know, and like I said, man, how we read in that chapter, if Drake basically was getting distracted by the women, the money, the wealth, the fame, and all this and that, and he's like, oh, you know, underestimated Kendrick, and Kendrick was just probably just sitting back like, okay, and studying and possibly reading books like this, and just like, this is how I'm going to come in and this is how I'm going to attack you. I already got the information on you and I already got all this and that on you, but the way I'm going to strategize is through this book right here. Like I said, man, you can look at the chapters right here real quick. I mean, this is just a few of the laws. Then we also have this right here. Look at this. This is also one of my other favorite ones. Law number 21. Can y'all see that right there? Play a sucker to catch a sucker. Seem dumber than your mark. That was one of the first laws that I read. I'll tell you the truth. That one just, for some reason, impressed me, man. I think when I first started reading this book, and by the way, this is a book that you're going to want to read more than once. It's not a book you just go and you just read once and you're like, okay, yeah, I read that book. No. Sometimes you got to go back and you got to read this book like a Bible. You know, you got to go over the laws again. Like, oh, yeah, wait, hold on. Oh, what's that person trying to do? Let me go back and read this law again and figure out how to handle that. But play a sucker to catch a sucker is one of my favorite laws, because there's some people out there that try to insult my intelligence. And I'm like, yo, I'm a lot smarter than you think. Don't try to insult my intelligence. But sometimes you don't want to come out and just say that right away. What that law basically means is sometimes you want that person to think that they're smarter than you, just so you can see what their next move is, and you play a fool to catch a fool. And I think that Kendrick kind of did that with Drake too. Remember when Drake kept saying the drop, and Kendrick just wasn't dropping nothing? Nah, because he was sitting back and he was studying the opponent. He was playing chess. While Drake was playing checkers, Kendrick was playing chess. I'm trying to tell you, man, brilliant. I am willing to bet that Kendrick read this book. No doubt about it, man. He had to. Everything he applied is in this book. So, yeah, man. Check it out. Please like, subscribe, support the channel. We definitely very much appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of this, hit it up in the comments and tell me what's up, man. Because I feel that there's other chapters in this book that Kendrick also applied.